On episode 225 of the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Rick Force, and he shares his weight loss journey. You can find the full show notes for this episode at 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/225. Have you decided you're ready to make a change? To reclaim your health and fitness? The 40 Plus Fitness Podcast is here for you. I'm your host, Alan Meisner. I'm an NSAM certified personal trainer with a specialization in corrective exercise and fitness nutrition. Let me be your coach as you find your way on your health and fitness journey. All right, let's go. Have you checked out Surefire results for weight loss? It's kind of interesting, and I didn't plan this, but a lot of the conversation that we have today with Rick Force, he actually brings up some of the concepts that are tenets of this program. It's a 28-day program guaranteed to help you lose weight. If you don't lose the weight, you get your money back. I'm that sure that it works, and I want you to be a part of it. I've made it very affordable to work with me and lose the weight that you want to lose. So go to 40plusfitnesspodcast.com/surefire and sign up today. Now, Rick Force sent me an email a couple weeks ago, and we got to talking, and his weight loss story was just fascinating to me, and I really enjoyed him sharing that. And I was like, this is too good for me to just keep this to myself. This is something that I needed to share with you. So I did want to bring Rick on. He was a little hesitant at first, but once he realized how much he could help you, he was more than glad to come on, and I think he enjoyed the experience, and I hope that you do. So with no further ado, here's Rick Force. So Rick, welcome to 40 Plus Fitness.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, now the name Rick Force, if I see that, I'm thinking this is a spy novel or at least a mystery thriller that I'm reading, because that's an awesome name, by the way.
Well, thank you.
You emailed me a little while back, and we got to messaging, and, I found your story quite compelling. Losing 65 pounds is quite a feat, and the way that you did it and all that. And I really wanted to bring you on the show and kind of give you an opportunity to share your story of success with folks, because I think, a lot of times I bring on experts, PhDs, doctors, medical doctors, and of course other physical trainers like myself, and we talk about this stuff, and they have a lot of practical experience in their clinics and with their patients and with their clients, but it's quite a different way when you hear it directly from someone that's actually done it. So thank you so much for coming on the show.
I'm glad you reached out to me. It was pretty exciting that you did and wanted me to come on the show. That's certainly when I sent you a quick email of just in general, just real quickly about responding to your question of whether I could get more out of this podcast and whatnot. And then we got discussing. It was kind of exciting when you asked me to come on, and I'm really happy to be able to talk to you about this.
Okay. So kind of take us back to how things were before, how you kind of got into the position you were in, and then what you were initially doing to try to, fix your health and fix your weight and whatnot.
Sure. I've always considered myself someone who's very active and very athletic, likes sports, likes to participate in various things. And over my lifetime, I would participate in a lot of those things. But I always seemed to carry more weight than I should. And a lot of times when I was younger, it didn't affect me at all. And I was able to work through that. And I didn't really have the motivation to lose weight because I was able to do all the things that I wanted to do. But then in the last 10 years or so, I started to really feel the effects of my weight. So I would go on that exercise train and really say, you know what, I'm going to do it. I'm going to lose the weight. I'm going to get it off. And this is going to be it. And I'm going to feel better. And things would go good for a while. And, I'd be on a good exercise routine for 6 weeks, 2 months, drop some good weight and feel good about myself. And then something would happen where I would either twist an ankle, or my Achilles would be bothering me, or I might have a little ache or pain here or there. And then I'd say, you know what, I got to back off a little bit because this is really bothering me. And I would back off a little bit, and inevitably I would start to go backwards, and the weight would start coming back on again. And I'd be really confused because I'd be like, I'm very active. I officiate sports. I play sports. I'm always out there and doing stuff. And I can't understand why this weight just wants to stay on me all the time. And so, of course, I'd go to the doctor, and he'd say something like, well, what do you eat? And I'd tell him what I eat. And, well, you need to not eat mayonnaise, or you need to, don't put mayonnaise on your sandwich or whatever. So I would go with that advice and all, and it would seem like, pretty logical, but I just couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure out why. Then one day a friend of mine said, hey, take a look at this, read this or that. And I started reading it. And then it became obvious to me that my approach was way, way, way wrong. And this was before I even started listening to these podcasts that you have. And so I started to read some books, and there was one book that I remember he gave me. I went to visit him in Chicago, and he gave me this book. He said, read it on the plane on the way home. So, yeah, okay. And it was a book, and I can't remember the author, but the title was very, very funny. It was Eat Bacon, Don't Jog, is the name of the book. And I thought that was kind of funny, and that kind of got me. So I read it, and it started to really make sense. So I figured out it wasn't about what I was doing. It was what I was putting in my body. So that's kind of where I started to turn on.
Okay. So with the Eat Bacon, Don't Jog, what changes did you make in your lifestyle as a result of that book, and then maybe some subsequent learning?
Yeah, I started to realize that it was more about becoming a fat burner rather than being a sugar burner. In that all those carbs and sugars that I was putting in my body was always waiting for that in order for me to get the energy. And then it connected the dots for me that, there were days where I would be kind of tired, but I had to go and say I was hired to officiate a soccer game or a basketball game or whatever. I was tired. And so I thought my solution would be to go ahead and eat, like a candy bar or something, that was going to give me a high, or sugar, in order to give me that energy to go and do that. And it would work to a point, but by the end of the game, I was just like spent and exhausted. And I said, well, this isn't, So after reading the book, I started to connect the dots and said, you know what? That's why, because my body ran out of that sugar. It doesn't know how to burn fat. So if it doesn't know how to burn fat, that's the reason why I'm not losing weight, even though I'm active. It's because I'm eating all this sugar and these carbs and all that. And that's where my body is getting the energy from. And when it runs out of that, I'm dead tired. I don't have the energy that I need. And it hasn't learned that, I have all this savings in my account. That's what I like to say, is that I have a bank with all this savings that I just, for whatever reason, my body was greedy, doesn't want to spend that savings. It's waiting for the cash flow to come in, which are the carbs, and it was going to wait. So now I've trained my body to burn the fat instead of waiting for that energy from those carbs. And that's how I connected those dots.
And so for our perspective now, you've lost how much weight?
I've lost approximately 65 pounds. I started out around 330 pounds, and now I'm down to around 260 to 265.
Congratulations. Again, I'm just really impressed when I see someone that's done what you accomplished and done it kind of the right way of recognizing that. Now, my guess is being down at that lower weight, the basketball officiating and the soccer officiating are a little bit easier?
Yes, basketball for sure, because that's been the major point of my season at this point. It has been the basketball. I was getting into it in September and during the soccer season, so I was starting to see the benefits. But then as basketball seasons come along, I really, really noticed it, and the energy levels and instead of on my way to the game eating a candy bar or something like that in order to gain energy or whatever it might be that I decided that day was the right thing to eat before the game, I'm not eating anything before the game. And then if I have multiple games, because sometimes here where I live, they're short on officials, so they ask us to do 2 games. So in between games, I'll maybe have some cucumber and maybe some chocolate almond milk just to have something, and it works out great. Works out fantastic.
Awesome. So now, if you had to kind of describe what a day of eating is like for you now, what would you eat in a day? What would that look like?
Okay, it's really become very, and by all means, it was nothing that I really planned. It's just kind of become regimented. And it wasn't anything that I was like, okay, this is what I'm going to do. And that was the other mistake I used to make, is that when I had my exercise routines and then I was going to eat right and I was going to do this, I felt it was very regimented. So I think that also contributed to my burnout at times. So now it's not regimented at all. So I'll wake up, in the morning, and usually I love coffee, and that's something that I probably will never give up, and I've identified that. I understand there's benefits and then there's some drawbacks to coffee, but you know what? I don't even worry about it because that's one thing I'm not willing to sacrifice, and I don't want to, because I think it would get me off the train because I would start to feel bad. So I have my coffee in the morning, but now I'll have a couple cups, but I put in some like Kerrygold butter into it or some coconut oil or whatever, and I'll drink that with my coffee, and maybe a little cream because I like it a little lighter. I don't like a black coffee. I like to have that smoother taste, and with the butter and the little bit of cream and the color, it's perfect. And I'll have a couple cups of that, and then I'll go about my day. And I'm not hungry at all until around noontime. And around noontime, 1 o'clock, I start to get a little hungry, which is actually kind of perfect because my games in the evenings usually start about 4 or 5 o'clock. So I can feel like I can actually have a decent meal. And by the time my games come, it's pretty much, gone through the digestion process, and it's not sitting in my stomach anymore. So I will then cook up myself. And honestly, this is almost every day. And I haven't gotten sick of it because I love these foods. And that's the other thing that's made it somewhat easy for me, is that I identified the foods that I can eat with this lifestyle and the ones that I really enjoy. And I've been able to do that and mix it up a little here and there. But basically the staples of my diet are eggs and vegetables and some sort of protein like chicken or maybe a pork sausage or something like that. So it's obvious to me that when I'm hungry, and actually it's pretty quick and easy, is around noontime, 1 o'clock, I can make myself a nice omelet. I can make an omelet with 3, 4 eggs and some peppers and mushrooms and some cheese. And I usually buy the good organic good cheese that I spend a little extra money on that. And I put that in there, and I have myself a nice omelet and maybe some almond milk and a big glass of water. And that's what I eat until I'm heading to my games. And again, like if I feel like I need to have a little something before my game, I'll cut up some cucumber and have it in the car and eat it on the car on my ride to the game. And then after the game's over, I come home, and sometimes I'm hungry, sometimes I'm not. So if I'm hungry, I'll throw a bag of green beans that are the brands that you can put a bag in the microwave with that steam, and steam cook those in their bag in the microwave. Put it in a bowl and maybe cook up a little sausage or chicken or whatever. Throw that in there. Put a little Kerrygold butter on it. Eat it, and that's what I eat for the day. And my energy levels have never been higher, and I can't believe it because my intake on food has never been lower. So it's incredible.
Well, I want to touch on a couple of things that you got into there, because I think this is very, very important, is that if you're hungry, you eat. And I think that's it's a novel concept, I think, for a lot of people, because they've gone into the mantra of, I have to eat breakfast, I have to eat 3 meals per day, this and that. I mean, you're effectively, your breakfast is some fat with your coffee. And with that, I would say, probably the way you're doing this, probably no more than 2 or 3 tablespoons of fat. So you're not taking in more than maybe 300 or 400, maybe 500 calories total with that. And then, you're having a very good lunch, which is probably putting you, I guess, around 1,100, 1,200 calories for your lunch, if you have the 4 eggs in there and a good bit of vegetables and cheese. And then if you're hungry, you've earned it. You've burned it, and your body's basically telling you, okay, we need a little bit more glucose. We can turn some fat into glucose to put into your liver and your muscles, but you did a little bit more running today than you normally would have, because you did 2 games instead. So yeah, we're gonna ask you to eat a little bit more carbs. You probably sleep a lot better those nights because you've taken in those green beans and kind of gotten a little bit of carbs into your system. And my guess is, that this process right now is working great for you. You're still losing weight and feeling better each day.
Yes, believe it or not, it's been what now? I started on the calendar. I wrote it down September 21st, and today is February 17th, so about 5 months. Of course, there's been times where, and you talk about this in your other podcasts, and I've learned a lot from your podcast, which is great. That's why I continue to learn about all this, is that there's going to be those peaks losing weight where you're going to drop some weight. And then you're going to have those plateaus where you're just not coming off. And you just can't get discouraged about it. You just have to understand that your body has just got to, it's doing what it needs to do to figure things out. I mean, it's got to learn all this new lifestyle that you have before it starts to decide if it wants to let go of some of that stuff. And then eventually I break through that plateau and it starts coming off again. And then I hit another one. And then, so at times it would come off like a week I would lose 8-10 pounds. And then I might go 10 days and only lose 3 pounds. It's just, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. But I haven't gotten discouraged about that at all because I continue to read about stuff and I listen to podcasts and I listen to other podcasts and other things. And it's worked out great. It's been perfect.
Well, good. So before we go, I guess I would just say, are there any questions you have from me that you'd just like to ask while you have my ear?
No, I just think that what I'd like to know is what I really would like is not necessarily a question, but I just would hope that down the road, this type of thinking and whatnot becomes more mainstream. And I don't know, I'm sure there's plenty of other people that I don't even know or listen to that are given that same message that you're given. I wish that it could be more mainstream. There's these fitness apps out there and such, which are fantastic. I wish there were more apps that were geared more towards this. So, for instance, there's this one app that I think is sponsored by Under Armour. It's called MyFitnessPal, which is fantastic. It helps you to track your stuff and keep you kind of going. But I really would like to see somebody step up and do an app where it's not just considering calories, because that's what the whole thing is all about, calories. And I think that's where people go wrong. They think if I eat so many calories, I'm going to lose so much weight. Well, it's not about the calories. It's the quality of calories. Am I correct on that?
You are. And what I've used MyFitnessPal for forever, even before they were purchased by Under Armour. And you're right, it is a very calorie-centric model. Now, I will say you can do this with the tool. You can go in and set the macros that you want to track. And so you can focus a little bit more on your overall macro profile. The one thing I would encourage you to do, though, is when you put a food in there, realize that some people, when they log a food into that database, they don't care about sugar. They don't care about some of the macros. So the macros might not be 100% correct. And most of the people that are in there confirming that amount is right, so you'll see the little check mark that this is confirmed. A lot of times they're only looking at the calories and they're not looking at the rest of those macros. Another thing is MyFitnessPal, just like everything else, you have to know what a serving size is. So kind of getting your mind around what a serving size truly is a little bit of a challenge with those things. But I can tell you this, Rick, you have the best fitness app sitting on your shoulders. And you said it best when you said, if I'm hungry, then I eat. And when you're a fat burner, that's exactly the signal you want. You want that leptin, ghrelin back and forth working very, very efficiently because the insulin levels are not so high that you can't tap the body fat. And we're walking around with this big fuel tank on us, so we need to use it. And when we've gotten our insulin intact, which is what you've effectively done now over the course of the last 5 months, and I think it's only going to get better for you as you continue to eat this way, because now you're fat adapted, was what we call fat adapted. Within 2 to 3 years of eating like this, you're going to get into a point where you're going to be at maximum efficiency. So you can compete as an athlete. So on that basketball court, you're going to be able to just run all day because you've got the body fat to allow yourself to do that. And what I think is so great about this, again, with that app you have on top of your shoulders, is that app is helping you now correct your path so that you're going to be able to continue to do what you love. Because I can hear the passion of the ref and the basketball and the soccer. I know that you love it. You're going to get to keep doing it for a long, long time, which I'm not sure on the trajectory you were on before that was the case.
Well, and the thing is I'm fortunate enough that I was able to realize this. And I guess my feeling is that for the general people who haven't realized this yet or are looking for, maybe don't want it or can't or don't, I'm also fortunate because I had the time to be able to really get into this and do all the research and all that. And a lot of people don't have that. So my hope would be someday down the road, like that MyFitnessPal would develop into a point where, I don't know, you're very familiar with the app. You said that you put in what you've eaten for today and what you've done for exercise today. And then at the very end, when you submit it for the day, it comes up with this thing at the bottom that says, if you continue on this, you're going to weigh this at this time. Well, that's not true.
You're absolutely right. I'm not going to argue with you there. That is a very simple model. One of the reasons that I really kind of push against weight as a measure. That I'm sure you've heard that on here before, because unfortunately, I could tell you how to lose 20 pounds right now. Cut off part of your left leg. You would lose 20 pounds almost instantly, but you wouldn't be able to do the things you like to do. So what's the value of that? Oh, and your head weighs 11 pounds. So there's another 11 while we're at it. So, when you think of body weight, you really need to be thinking about in terms of, I want to lose body fat. And it's hard for me to get that vernacular out there. I tried that early on. A lot of the things I talk about is body fat. And you know what? The search engines wouldn't even pick up my podcast because I kept saying lose fat. When I started saying lose weight, the search engines start picking me up. So, that's the sad reality of this, is when the millions want something and the thousands want something else, everybody is kind of pushing towards what the larger number of people need.
So the motivation is still wrong. People it seems that they want to motivate by losing weight. And that, I think that's the wrong motivation. But I think people in the mainstream, that's where their motivation is to lose the weight. That's a little wrong. And if you can get past that and understand that, that's when you're going to have your success. That's the way I see it. I'm no expert, like you said at the very beginning.
Well, no, Rick, I think you are. You're an expert in Rick, and you're learning more every day. I got an email just actually yesterday, a Facebook message from Larissa. She's over in India, and she was asking. She said her personal trainer said she should start lifting weights. She's been doing yoga and some other things, and the personal trainer encouraged her to start lifting weights. And her concern was if she started lifting weights, that she might gain weight, that her BMI would go up. And she's worked so hard to get down to her current weight. And she's just really concerned if she starts lifting weights, she's going to gain weight. And it really is a hard hurdle for a lot of people to get past, to realize that weight is not a measure of health. It's a measure of mass. And I would rather have my, 32-inch waist and weigh 400 pounds than to look like I weighed 400 pounds but only weigh 150. And so I think it's about the health of your body and what you're able to do. The true measure of health, the true measure of this is you get to do what you want to do. You're running up and down the basketball court, enjoying what you're doing, and you love it. And that's the measure. If you found yourself halfway through a game having to sit down and take a break, if you needed the half times and the timeouts more than the players did,
that's funny.
That wouldn't be enjoyable to you anymore. So, when we're talking to folks about this, I want to get past the weight, and I want to go to, what is your vision of what you want 5, 10, 15 years from now? And you think about those things, like we work so hard. Well, our whole lives, we work so hard for retirement, but you see so many people who are at retirement age that can't even walk. So they go sit in their little apartment or house and they can't go anywhere. They can't do anything. So what did you work so hard your whole life? You saved up all this money to do things. Well, if we invested half the time we needed to into our health, we would be out and about during those years. We'd be enjoying those times. And so, I think you probably want to still be coaching, doing the reffing of basketball when you're 65 years old. And that's the path you're on. That's your measure. It's not the weight. It's really the path of how you feel and what you're capable of doing. And I really want people to kind of focus on that, we're going to have to talk about weight loss because otherwise no one else is going to listen to the message. But in the end, I want to switch it back around and say, don't worry about that last 5 pounds. Worry about that last 5 years. Living a long, healthy life is really what this is all about.
Yeah. I feel for me, it's worked is that I have short-term goals also. So you got to combine your long-term goals with some short-term goals.
You're absolutely right. And so that's why I'm doing the podcast. And that's why, this is, we're well into this, into episodes 220s and plus. So, I put the message out there. Occasionally I let someone come in that's more of a low-fat kind of person that wants to talk about it, because I think it's a dialogue we at least need to listen to, because if we won't at least listen to their side of the argument, I know they're never going to listen to ours. So I want to keep an open mind about it and realize that there's not one path for everybody. Someone can sit there and completely count calories. And if the sugars and what they are eating are not inflaming their body, not causing them any other health issues, if their liver's healthy, if everything else about them is healthy, and they can continue to eat fruit and vegetable, eat all the sugars they want, God bless them. They're blessed in genetics.
It's funny, Alan, that you brought that up, because I didn't even think to talk about that or mention that when you asked me at the beginning. When I used to go to my yearly physicals, and I would talk to my doctors, and they would, every once in a while run cholesterol tests and all that. My cholesterol was always great. My blood pressure sometimes would be a little high, but my cholesterol was good. Everything always seemed really normal. And he'd say, you're carrying a lot of weight, but all your vitals are really normal.
Well, you just made your own point. You just made your own point, because we talked about, does weight matter? And the reality was, no, you were healthy as a horse, but you were carrying the extra weight. The problem with the weight was that was probably what was causing a lot of the injuries and issues that would put you down for a little while, which would cause you to gain more weight. And so you were going to probably continue to go on that path towards a heavier and heavier weight, which eventually probably would have had some complications.
It was. Like I had said, like when I was in my 20s and my 30s, everything was fine. I could carry the weight. But now all of a sudden I was getting to a point where I was just desperate. I'm like, Jesus, this is not working out so well.
Well, good. Well, Rick, again, I love your name. I think you need to be in a spy novel or something. And maybe when you get down where you want to be, maybe that's exactly what your future holds for you. But thank you so much for coming in and sharing your story. It's, again, very inspirational. Having someone that's gotten something from the podcast really means a lot to me. And I'm glad I was able to give you some value. And I appreciate you coming back and sharing that value with our audience. Thanks, Rick.
Thank you very much. And keep doing what you're doing, because I think it's fantastic. Hopefully your listeners will double, triple, quadruple, and all that, because it's really the right message. Thank you so much.
Don't you just love success stories? I mean, I know I do. And if you have a success story you'd like to share with me, feel free to reach out. You can email me at main@forever.fitness and just share your story, even if I'm just a small part. Maybe I am not, but I just love success stories, and I love hearing what people have accomplished. So please do reach out. I want to get to know you better. Next time on the 40 Plus Fitness Podcast, we meet Matt Fitzgerald and discuss his book, The Endurance Diet. Until then, have a happy and healthy day.